Hey everyone, Dan here. We are just after market close on Monday, March 29th. Wanted to take a look at a bunch of stocks actually that we've been watching and some new ones. And so before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's get right into it. So GameStop has sort of found some footing here in the 180 mark. Held up really well off this 176 support level that we had charted quite a while back, and even held the 170 before that last week, which was a good sign. It's now spent almost 2 days in this channel, so that's a good sign. And gives us the potential for inching our way up into the 220s toward the end of the week, though we know GameStop hasn't typically shown itself to be sort of like a slow and steady crawler. It's been more of an explosive pump and sell-off, but that said, it has previously held channels for quite a long time, so I know I'm kind of contradicting myself, but this is just to sort of like temper the hope that it could be entering a channel, because I would actually be more hopeful for it to enter a channel, because I think it gives us better predictability in terms of where to buy dips and where to take profits, and maybe not just ride this up as one big wave, but to catch a whole bunch of waves in between. But to me, GameStop is looking really, really solid, and it's nice to see that it's recovered really well since this sell-off over here. All right. Facebook. So Facebook had a really good day today, and it sort of retraced a bunch of this sell-off that it had gone through. So this is sort of making the rare these days at least, the rare smiley face. We see so many sad faces on so many stocks that we cover lately, but this is a rare smiley face. So good job, Facebook, and congrats to anyone who caught this run today. It was a really solid move up all the way up to 293, kicking off that run at about 279.50. And so it's obviously looking really good, because when it ran up and double topped here, the pushback wasn't that significant. The pushback was from basically 293 down to that 290.35 support zone, and then it's held there for several candlesticks, and this is a 30-minute chart. So to me, it's looking really, really good. It has now one of these cushions of support that we talk about underneath it. It obviously has a lot of upside to get itself back to 300. And I would look for it maybe to take a breath and not continue this steep of a run-up. Though, a stock with this history and with this strength, having gone through this deep of a sell-off this quickly, could certainly recover just as quickly. But at some point, it's going to have to take a breath, sort of collect itself, establish a floor, a new floor, and then continue to build price strength off of that floor. So just be aware, a breath is coming. Palantir, I've been pretty bearish on Palantir for quite some time, and I've taken a lot of heat for it. But Palantir has been in this downtrend since March 12th, and it's March 29th. So that is a long time for a stock with so much hype and so much purported growth potential behind it to be stuck in this pretty severe down channel. Today I looked at it a couple of times just because I'm so used to looking at opportunities to buy Palantir that it's just a habit. And so I've continued to look at it, and today every time I looked at it, it was just toward the top of this channel and then toward the mid channel, but not showing any, it didn't have any strength there at that 2197 level. And it finally picked up some strength at that 2147, but to me, there was just too many other good opportunities out there, and this was already sort of on the upper half or very high in its channel and wasn't holding its support zones well, so I just thought, not worth it to me today. A couple of things to look out for. For myself, I'm looking at this 2116 as a cautionary zone. If it gets down there, and I do end up in a position and I'm holding it through there, just sort of be aware that that might be a zone to say it's kind of do or die time for Palantir. And then, again, I don't have a position right now, but if I do take one, I want to have this 2084 charted as a potential cut loss, because then it will just still be sucked down into this channel and will be in a pretty rough spot, in my opinion. And who knows what could happen there. On the upside, it has established today at this level. It sort of has done the opposite of what Facebook did, right? Facebook ran up and then found a little bit of a beat down, or sort of a pushback, I guess, and established really good support. Palantir got sold off really hard, but was able to catch itself at this 2147 and has continued to build support off of that. So that's a potential good sign. And then the other thing would be this gap here, is ripe to be filled. And that would put us in this zone in the coming days if we're able to do it. And then ultimately, there is still a gap up here that needs to be filled too. Up above 2450 is where that would place us if we were able to come up and fill that gap. And Palantir has a storied history of returning to this 2428 level, and so that would be in line with sort of like it making a trek back to fill this gap, and then maybe coming back down to 2428. All right, a new one for us, APHA, APHA Inc. I don't know if I butchered that or not, but anyway, after it had this big run up, and then it essentially made, this isn't really even a sad face. This is just sort of like a, I don't know, just like a dagger of death. It's like a death dagger, because it has this like very sharp top. There was no kind of rounding off and coming back down. But basically it's getting all this down pressure from this white trend line here. And what it did show today is that it held this previous support zone at 1691. And the good thing about this is it held slightly above it, which is actually when something's returning to a previous support zone, that's what you want to see it do. Not always come down and totally retest it, but to stop just shy of it. And each time that it stops just shy of it, subsequent to that, it starts to build a series of higher lows. So, what you could look for is for it to continue to establish here, hit this inflection point, and then possibly jet itself up toward 1825, which I don't think that there's a ton of resistance points to get there. If they are, I think they're primarily going to be within this trend line. But once it pops out of there, I think it has a good opportunity. It might get stuck at like this area, which would be sort of like typical to chart, and probably this one too. But I don't think that they will be incredibly strong resistance points. I think the first one that would hit that would be strong would be over 18. Tesla has also gotten sold off pretty hard. Tesla does have a gap here that I think probably still could be filled, and a gap up here that could certainly still be filled. So I would look for it to possibly flag out and then retrace up to about 645, and then it would be interesting to see what it does. But it's developed a lot of resistance points above it to get itself back toward the 700 mark, and luckily it's caught itself just below 600 here, and but it's gonna meet this trend line sooner or later, or it's going to continue to be pushed down further and further on that trend line. So it'll be interesting to see if it comes up to fill these gaps, because that would give us sort of like gap fillers are kind of reliable plays, similar to channel plays, can be very reliable. PENN. So PENN I've been looking at because it's had quite the sell-off. I mean, it's 142 up here, and it's all the way down to 98.40 right now. So that's an incredible drop off in price, and it has a bunch of sad faces in the charts. So what I'd be looking for if I do take a position is for it to break this downtrend line. So if it starts to establish some strength off of this 101.03, that might give me enough confidence that as it approaches this, it's going to start a run up toward that 110. It'll probably have a little stickiness right around here at about 105, but I think that that run from 101 to 110 will actually be pretty smooth sailing. And if I do take a position, I did put this pretty tight stop loss of 96.51 just because this downtrend has been so sort of significant. It's sometimes it's just that's the momentum is just huge selling pressure, and it's hard to get rallies going. So that's why I'd keep a tight cut loss on this one. RKT, I still have a long position in RKT, and RKT had, I guess, sort of like a torpedo of death here, sort of like, I guess maybe that sort of tried to look like a rocket ship, but was a sad rocket ship because it was looking so promising in the first hour and a half or so of the day, and then it double topped here, and it just got crushed down to this 23.89. But it did catch itself there for the entire rest of the day. So that's a good sign. What I'd be looking for is if it can, I think maybe I just drew this in a little wacky. Okay, yeah, that's about where I meant it to be. So it is potentially toward the bottom of this white trend line. So if it's going to walk itself up, it needs to stick itself to this 23.89, and then in the pre-market tomorrow, be walking itself up into the 24s to continue this trend upward. So this is, however, a very steep trend up. So I wouldn't expect this to actually hold. I would expect it to maybe get to this 28 mark would be, in my case, the bullishest, the most bullish of scenarios. Good likelihood that it struggles so much around the 25.53 that it pops itself out. But to me, that wouldn't mean that it's going to give up on the uptrend. I think it could walk itself up, battle this 25.53 level, establish it as support, and then make its march toward this 28.14. But it's going to have to, if it does do that, it's going to have to make sure that it doesn't hit a triple top around this range here. Basically 27, basically the first half of the $27 range, 27 to 27.50 is going to be sort of a dangerous one for it. So keep an eye on it there. RIOT, the blockchain play, basically a sad face today, but it left us with a lot of good areas to chart, and 47.30 would be sort of my cautionary zone on this one. You could obviously stick yourself with a cut loss. I don't currently have a position, but if I did, I'd put it about 46.32 would be my cut loss area, because these companies have often really big pumps up and really big drop-offs from, if not day to day, certainly week to week. Similar thing with Mara, which you may have seen us do a bunch of videos on. And so, these are just tough ones here. If we go back a little bit, these would be additional areas to look for if you do want to sort of hold it through potential longer downturns, because maybe you have a very low cost basis or something. But 44.52 and 41.63, if I did have like a really great entry point in the past, then I'm pretty tolerant with my risk here, and I don't mind seeing it, test the $40 level, for example. Those would be my next areas to look at. 44.52, 41.63. But this is also sort of in an uptrend here. There's nothing clean enough to like chart, but this is making, so like this is a low. If we look at this is the next one, this is a higher low, and this pretty much held, and then it pumped up again, and now it's making another higher low as long as it sticks to this 47.30 mark. So if that's the case, then I actually think it's looking quite fine. You just have to scroll back a few days, even on the 30-minute chart, to see sort of like a better perspective of what's happening. VIAC has been getting absolutely crushed. I mean, this is brutal. $100 up here. Less than half that now, 44.80. I mean, just an absolute crushing. And that was just a week ago that it was at $100. I mean, anyone who bought there has lost more than half of their money in a week. So, pretty crazy. This is an incredibly steep downtrend. It's potentially trying to catch itself now, though we have seen that happen in the past. It does have examples of it trying to catch itself. all this sideways action here. To me, the big difference is all of that sideways action was pretty much in the pre-market and in the after hours, whereas this one, like it catching itself here happened during market hours, and then it catching itself at that same point again happened during market hours. So that would give me potentially some hope that Viacom can flag out here and then start to give us some uptrend. But I do think that there's a ton of upside potential in this one because of the impressive beatdown that has occurred. If I were holding it, or if I were to take a position sort of as this flagging out is pending, and I wanted to kind of see what was happening, I'd look for these immediate blue support zones to hold. This yellow would be my caution, and my red would be my cut loss. But even then, that would be, it would just be such a significant drop to go from even 44.88 to 37.12. Percentage-wise is still a very big drop. So good luck if you're in Viacom. SUNW has, this one has also been beat around a lot lately, and we've covered this one in the past, and that's why the chart looks a little bit like a mess here. But we can get rid of some of these things. Essentially, a lot of this chart, the blue marks here, obviously the channels that I just deleted were broken. And right now, essentially what's happening is, these blue price zones are definitely holding, and this red price zone too. So these are holding up, so I'm going to keep those there because I think that those are our sort of immediate resistance points as we try to walk ourselves back up. And SUNW has to do a similar thing to a bunch of the other ones that we talked about, where it's got to establish itself on this trend line and be able to walk itself up to that 1270 and establish some support there. And if it does, then we can look for it to extend itself out here and work its way into the $13 range. But even if it does follow this trend line up, that's going to be several days out. So absent of some really bullish catalyst that pushes it up in a steeper fashion, you're going to be in this one for a while, which, if that's what you want, that's cool. But you need to start looking for these higher lows to establish. Otherwise, to my mind, still, if I were to have a position, which I don't currently, 1193 would still be my cut loss area. All right, well, I hope everyone had a decent start to their week, and I wish you the best, and I'll see you all in the next video.